So former President Barack Obama went on the Pod Save America podcast, and he did an interview that was about an hour long, and they touched a variety of topics. Now, the thing that's getting headlines that I've seen is that he called Democrats, quote, buzzkills. And, he sort of went after this notion of cancel culture a little bit and said, look, you got to meet people where they are. You can't use language that's alienating. Why do you think a guy like John Fetterman is doing well? Because he's just a normal dude. And, basically made this argument of, like, embrace normedom, which, look, I do think that's a fair argument. So that's what's getting headlines. But there's a part that annoyed me way more than that, which I'm going to share with you. So here's Obama. He was talking about the Supreme Court in this section, but then he goes on to take a couple shots at the left. So let's listen and then I'll react to it.
But for those of you who are listening and have friends whose attitude is, I'm so progressive that I don't bother voting because, it's all just a neoliberal, plot. Keep in mind that, let's say the climate provisions in, the big Biden administration bill. They're not going to solve climate problems. The temperatures are still going up. The planet's still warming. But, it makes a big difference whether the planet goes up 2% or 3% or 4%. That might be billions of people who are displaced or not displaced. That might mean entire cities that are flooded or not. And may make a huge difference in terms of, our capacity to manage these changes that are taking place. So if you vote and we've made it more likely that temperatures rise 2.2% rather than 3%, that's got to be worth 15 minutes of your time.
Seems like a good thing.
Right?
Yeah.
It has to be. The same is true when it comes to issues like racial justice. Is your vote going to eliminate racism or problems between police and communities of color across the country? Probably not. But you know what? It could mean a different DA someplace. It could mean the difference in terms of making an investment in diversion programs that give kids a chance and don't simply lock them up for 20 years. And that's got to be worth 15 minutes of your time, and then you can continue to work for the broader vision that you're looking for. But I do get frustrated with an attitude that I'm too cool to vote, that you see floating around the internet a lot among folks who purport to be progressive, and I can't wrap my head around that argument because it's not as if these folks who are, on social media making this argument are out leading the revolution.
So here's why this gets under my skin. You're blaming these people for feeling that way, but you're not really steel manning their argument as to why they feel that way and how it would have been possible to make it so they don't feel that way. Where does the blame lie for this phenomenon that he's talking about? Now, he would say it's on them. It's on these lefty voters who are doomers, they're pessimistic, they don't think change can come, and so they've checked out of the system. He would blame them. I would ask him, how do you think they got to that place? How do you think they arrived at that conclusion? Is it just because they're wholly irrational? And it's as simple as that? They're idiots? They don't care about the world as much as they claim they care about the world? Is that the argument? Is that what you think? Because I know he doesn't think that. The fact of the matter is this. In my experience, most people, particularly on the left too, most people are more rational than you think. Now, is there a small percentage of any group that's going to be like totally irrational and absurd? Yeah, but that's welcome to acknowledging the nature of people, right? But the overwhelming majority of this group, there was a way to avoid this, Barack Obama, and you didn't avoid it. In fact, you're the main reason why people ended up there. Because in 2008, we had the subprime mortgage crisis, we had the Great Recession, We had all these illegal wars going on overseas, and Obama came in as the change guy, as the candidate who was really going to shake things up. We were at a turning point in American history. He had a mandate to go full FDR. He had a mandate to totally change the nature of our economy and our foreign policy. And he actively chose not to do that. Now, his real politics are like corporate, centrist, neoliberal Democrat stuff. I know he swats aside this idea of a neoliberal plot in there, but why don't you just own what your actual beliefs are? I would have more respect for him if he was like, yeah, I took the path I took because that's the path I believe in. I don't believe in social democracy. I believe in, a liberal version of capitalism where you just take off the rough edges and that's it. If he was honest about that, then I wouldn't, I would just have a disagreement with him, but at least it'd be an honest disagreement. The argument he made here strikes me as kind of dishonest, because you know how people ended up where they ended up. Because how many people went to prison over the subprime mortgage crisis and the Great Recession and the colossal fraud that was committed on the American public? How many Wall Street bankers went to prison? How many? None. None went to prison. How many Americans lost their houses because you guys decided we're going to bail out the financial institutions, but not the people? We're not going to do a bottom-up bailout. We're going to do a top-down bailout, which is sort of this trickle-down economic approach. And how many people lost their homes? Millions. So you can't look at a generation that was raised in that environment. They tried to do the let's change it thing by voting for you. You delivered half measures at best, and then they're mad, and then they're pissed off, and then they feel very pessimistic. They're doomers. Well, why do they feel that way? And by the way, look, and this is something I'm noticing even more so now with Biden, because Biden has done some little things here and there that are real fundamental pieces of change, and I'm reminded of how reasonable these people really are that Obama's attacking here, how reasonable most of them are, because all Biden did was reduce a little bit of the student loan debt. All Biden did was say, we're going to pardon all the nonviolent drug offenders at the federal level, wipe their records clean, and so they can get a fucking job. That's all he did. Things he can do by himself, he did do it by himself. And everybody on the left was like, oh, thank God. We got a crumb of help. We got a crumb of help in the right direction. Oh, thank God. Oh, it turns out this Biden guy's not that bad. And when I did that segment, remember I did that segment on Crystal Kyle and Friends where I said, I think Biden is already better than Obama was. And I was expecting some semblance of disagreement and backlash over that, but the overwhelming sentiment was like, no, that's exactly right. We totally agree. That's exactly right. So, in other words, like, Obama, to clear the bar, Obama just had to do like a couple, if he was the one who did student loan debt reduction, or if he was the one who pardoned all the nonviolent drug offenders at the federal level, then I think like 70% of these people he's shitting on would still be involved in politics. But he's the tweaks around the edges guy. He's the status quo manager guy. Now, I'm not saying he did nothing that was good, but he certainly fell well short of what his promise was. He didn't fundamentally change the system in any sense at all. He bailed out the con artists as the American people got screwed. He unfortunately continued the wars. In fact, he ramped up the war in Afghanistan. When I remember when Obama got elected, one of the things I was happiest about was I remember thinking when he was giving his inauguration speech, we're going to get out of Iraq and Afghanistan. We're going to do it. We're going to do it like, within 6 months or whatever. And you didn't do it. So now, let's do a thought experiment. Let's say Obama did pull out of Iraq and Afghanistan in the first 6 months of his presidency. Let's say Obama did do the exact same thing that Biden did with the student loan debt reduction, the exact same, numbers. 20,000 elimination for Pell Grant recipients, 10,000 for everybody else under 125,000, etc. He did that, and he pardoned every nonviolent drug offender. I genuinely think the narrative around Obama would be different. Now, there'd still be a lot to criticize there, right? Like the way he handled the 2008 Great Recession, etc., but I think the narrative would be significantly different, and a very large number of these people that Obama's attacking would actually vote. and would actually be more involved in politics. It's that people want a fundamental change of the system, and they're getting like, they got under Obama like what, 15% change, 20% change? And I think the reaction from people is like, could you at least give us like 40 or 50% change? You know, I think that's the reaction. Everybody's got a different bar. Everybody's got a different line of what they think is reasonable and what merits praise and whatnot. But in my experience, most people are pretty fucking reasonable. And any amount that you truly help them is rewarded, right? When did Biden have his highest approval rating? When he cut $1,400 checks. He had a 52 or 54% approval rating. Biden's approval rating with young people was in the fucking dumps. It was incredibly low. Then he canceled student loan debt. Then it skyrocketed. And again, even do full elimination. He just did a little reduction. And even that, people were like, oh, thank God. Okay, we like him now. So, in other words, what I would say to Obama is, dude, you have to look in the mirror. Just be more honest with everybody. Say, I'm a neoliberal corporate centrist. Like, that's my politics, and I will argue for those positions. Fair enough. But also, just acknowledge the fact that maybe, just maybe, if you went further, if you did more things that you could do that's in your control, you would have been liked more. When you had a supermajority and you couldn't even get a public option, well, whose fault is that? You want to blame the specific Democratic senators who wouldn't fall in line? Fair enough, but you didn't fight for it the right way. You didn't really make them pay a political price for doing that, right? So own that. Own that. If he had gotten us a public option, if he had reduced student loan debt, if he had freed the nonviolent drug offenders, we'd be having a different conversation about Obama. As opposed to, hey man, he's largely a failure that did some good things. We'd be talking about, he was kind of a success, but did some bad things. That would be the narrative. So anyway, yeah, this does annoy me because it's on you, dude. Like, this is on you. If you went further, if you were more aggressive, if people really got a sense that you were fighting for them as opposed to managing the status quo and barely tweaking stuff, I think it would be a different narrative on the left now. I do. So, people just want a little bit of help, dog. And that's why do you think now that I finally see Biden doing some decent things, why I'm out here like, look, credit where it's due, because I'm trying to channel that important sentiment of like, if you keep doing stuff like this, you will get rewarded. People will vote for you. People will fight for you. People will argue for you. So just keep doing the good things, you'll get rewarded. But Obama fundamentally let people down, and then he's like chastising them after he let them down. And saying, like, why are you letting me down? No. You gotta earn the support. You gotta earn, the excitement of people getting involved in politics. You have to do it. You cannot blame them. Is there some tiny percentage of them that actually is irrational? And no matter how much you deliver, they'll be like, well, what about this thing? Sure. But the overwhelming majority are a hell of a lot more reasonable than that. So, it's amazing to me that all these years later, he still really hasn't reckoned with his own failures. He hasn't done it. And, it's kind of pathetic. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.